the place, welcome to Indigo Ray TV, the place where we explore the cross and intersection between your humanity and your divinity, and where we talk about all things health, wellness, and spirituality. So, welcome. Hello, 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 Mosaic Souls. Hey, Mosaic Souls, this is Rachael Alexander, artist and Mosaic Soul mentor, aka spiritual teacher with and transformational coach with flair. And so I'm excited to talk about this topic as I wanted to sort of define just who I am as a spiritual teacher and just sort of where I'm at in my spiritual journey, because it might be helpful to some of you. If you're live with me, feel free to say hi. Before I dive in, I always like to take care of a little house business. The whole purpose of Divine Daily Coaching is to help support you in creating the life that you desire and taking the path of least resistance and creating more health, wellness, and abundance in your life at all levels of being. And so what I do is I get on and I chat for a few minutes about the topic at hand and then open the floor up for questions. So if you're interested in asking me some questions, just wait until I finish sort of chatting about what I'm going to chat about, and then I'll tell you when I open the floor. And then the other piece about the house bit. Oh, hello, Z. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Pieces. The other bit is if you are interested in taking me up on my complimentary gifted December gift giving 30-minute breakthrough sessions, check out the first link in the description box below. And if you're looking to work and really establish your own inner power and inner being and in your own spiritual life direction, check out the second link in the description box below. Okay, so now that I've chatted about the house rules, let's dive in. So how I've simplified my spiritual process over the years. I feel like I've been a very spiritual child ever since I was very little. I did definitely grow up in the Christian background. So I grew up in a huge church. I went to sort of like a megala church here in Atlanta, Georgia, and it was actually in Decatur, Georgia. And so I grew up in that whole thing, right? But ever since I was little, I always had what I would call a very deep connection with what I at that time called God. Okay. And so because of that, I've always had this very heightened sense of intuition and heightened sense of listening to my intuition. Now I would call it I would never say God told me, but I did feel like whatever my intuition was telling me, I was always usually tuned into that because that's what I just always followed ever since I was little. I was always very deep. And even when I was a little girl, I remember being 4 and 5 and just feeling like I didn't want to be here on the planet. Like I used to feel like, oh God, why am I here? Like being human felt really dense and like really heavy for like when I was like 4 and 5. And I remember having those moments and feelings of like not really wanting to be in a human body. So I used to always feel like I've always felt like otherworldly, like I wasn't from here. So I've felt like that ever since I was little. I remember feeling that way. But anyways, what does that have to do with me simplifying my spiritual experience? All that is to say, since the time I was a little girl, my spiritual practices have always come from my heart and following my intuition, which is why I really love helping people really tap back into their own intuition and giving you guys tools and processes to really refine that for yourself and to discover how to really tune into your heart and let your heart be its own inner guidance, right? So when I was little, from that time up until now, I've studied so many different modalities. I've been introduced to so many different religions and thoughts of different thoughts in the spiritual community and things of that nature. And it can be really complicated and it can be very convoluted in certain areas, and it can be very restricted or it can be very free flowing. It can be whatever you really want to make it. And so for me, because my heart has always been my compass, ever since I was a little girl, which is why I always share with you in all my videos, flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't. Because I truly believe that whatever you're here to experience, it will resonate with you in the form of the love frequency, in the form of the bliss, the joy frequency for the most part, right? So what do I mean by that? That's really the gist of how I simplified my spiritual awakening experiences. When you dive into sort of spirituality and maybe you're new to it and stuff like that, you might get into a whole host of different belief systems, a whole host of, different modalities, and different just trains of thought, right? And it can be confusing or it can be overwhelming. And it can feel like, well, I don't know what the heck to believe. I don't know what to do. I always say flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't, because when you're on the spiritual path, your heart is your compass. Your heart is connected to your higher self, your soul, spirit being, the non-physical you, whatever you want to call it, to source, right? And so for me, simplifying my spiritual awakening process has always come down to that, right? So anytime I'm listening to other spiritual teachers or reading a book or, exploring different processes of thought, I always bring it back to my heart. And I ask, how is this relevant for my human experience? One, is this true? Does it resonate for me? Is this useful in my life, right? And so I always make it come back to what resonates for me, what really resonates. And when I talk about resonance, I'm talking about, it's sort of that feel-good moment where when someone says something, you're like, yeah, that makes so much sense. But it's not when you resonate with something out of fear, right? Which is all why I said it's the love vibration, it's the love resonance, right? Because a lot of times people talk about doom and gloom, in different religious talk or different other type of spiritual circles, people talk about different dooms and glooms and, this person is out to get this person and all this other type of stuff. And it's all well and good. So whatever resonates with you is what you're here to explore and dabble or dive into, and that's just like my personal belief and experience. I'm always ever evolving and always expanding, but at this current moment, that's my personal belief system. I believe that we're all sovereign beings, divine, infinite beings, fractals of source, fractals of what we call God or whatever you want to call it. And we each have the ability to sort of create our reality and shape our reality based upon our belief systems. So for me, I always use the love frequency as sort of my barometer of knowing whether or not a path is where I need to be going, right? And so let me just give you an example. Bringing back the idea, when I first entered into Kemetic yoga, right? And I started Kemetic yoga, it was out of love and out of reverence and out of, it was sort of like a sort of a different winding road that led me to even get into Kemetic yoga and Kemetic thought. And even then I didn't technically stay there. There's a lot of things in ancient Kemet and some of the things they teach that don't resonate with me, but there's a lot of stuff that really does, right? So which is always why I always say flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't. So in that regard, for me, it's all about the love vibration. I believe that love is the highest frequency that we can experience. Love is who we truly are. And because of that, it's truly, for me, the barometer through which I lead my life, right? And that's really how my life, I've really simplified my spiritual awakening. I always turn back. Is it of the love frequency, right? Is this belief system in alignment with the love frequency? If it's not, then I get to question in it and I can look at it in different ways to let me know whether or not something is in alignment with my highest good or with what I'm here to experience, right? So for you, when you're embarking on your own spiritual journey and you're exploring different modalities or you're exploring different modes of thought or you're exploring different things, I invite you to utilize this sort of barometer for yourself as well. Is it on the spectrum of love or is it on the spectrum of fear, right? If it's on the spectrum of fear, then I invite you to sort of take that energy in or take whatever you're sort of being disseminated into or indoctrinated into or whatever and sort of gauge for yourself whether or not that resonates with you. For me, I have a tendency to choose not to choose things that resonate out of fear because that's not why I'm here. I call myself the queen of simplicity because I'm really here for the simple experiences. Other people are here for other things, right? You might be here for other things, right? For me, it's always been super simple, of the love vibration and all that good stuff. But some people are here to dive into more of the feared vibration, which is totally fine. I think that it's all divine. It is truly all divine. So all that is to say, how I've simplified my spiritual awakening process is, for me, it always comes down to love. Is what I'm exploring or what I'm experiencing in alignment with who I truly am, which is, for me, love? And if it's not in alignment for me of the frequency of love, then I can choose to discard it because it doesn't resonate with me. You see what I'm saying? So that's really how I simplify my spiritual awakening process. And you know, the spiritual awakening process for me is really just about sort of turning the light on in a dark room of like your inner world, your innermost thoughts, your innermost feelings, the truth of who you are beyond just this fleshly being, right? Like the non-physical you. It's becoming more aware of who you truly are beyond just this physical form, right? So for me, spirituality and that of itself, everything is technically spiritual because everything is energy, right? Everything is vibration. But for me, spirituality is the modality or the focus in sort of tuning in and tapping more into the non-physical that we experience, right? The energetic and vibrational signatures that we experience, such that we can create more and more of that which we desire while in human form, and start to really shape and morph our human experience in the form that we desire to experience it while we're here. So I hope that this has made sense. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll open the floor for any questions that you have around spiritual awakening or spiritual experience. And I will do my best to answer them from my heart and from my honest sort of standpoint. If you're just joining me live, feel free to say hi. I just went over sort of my whole barometer or litmus test for my personal spiritual awakening and my own personal journey. And I sort of talked about how basically love is always sort of my litmus test for how I choose to experience my life in human form. So feel free to ask me if you any questions that you might have. If not, I'm gonna hop off and go take care of some business. It's been wonderful chatting with you guys for the whole month of December. Can you believe that 2020 is almost over? Year end and year starts is kind of funny. It's funny because before this, I never really used to be in. If you have any questions, feel free to drop in the chat. Otherwise, I'm gonna hop off in a couple minutes. But before this, I never used to have like not never, but like in the past like 5 years of my spiritual awakening, year to start and year end just sort of blurs and time just feels elastic. So it's funny, but 2020 really definitely felt like a shift energetically. I definitely felt a shift energetically. I think because of certain things that happened for me and that I created towards the end of 2019, moving into 2020. So it's very interesting, the 2021 energy that's going to be, or we'll be shifting into and all that stuff moving forward. Well, I see that there are no questions this evening. It's been wonderful coming on with you guys and supporting you throughout the month. As always, flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't, because you are divine. You are a divine being, and your soul knows exactly what you've come to explore, experience, and traverse on the planet. So remember, what you conceive is what you'll receive. What you expect is what you'll get. Hello, you're welcome, Miss Cherokee. Welcome back. What you expect is what you'll get, and however you feel is what will become real for you. So vibrate higher, and I will catch you guys later. Peace, love, and light.